Whew, we have a lot to talk about. Here's the funny thing about doing a show about pro wrestling. Sometimes, depending on what your topic is, you can get away with recording a couple of different episodes at one time and having them release weekly as they do. The series of episodes that I was doing had nothing to do with the current product in AEW, ROH, WWE, TNA, New Japan, none of it. So I'm like, that's cool. I have 3 videos that have nothing to do with current product. I knew better than that. I knew better than that. But I did it anyway. So let's discuss the things that have happened since I last recorded. Funny enough, this video is inspired by 2 events. One, as I was making the notes for what would be the opening of the WWE TNA matchup card, a lot harder uh, than you might think. As I was working on that, I realized that so much has happened that should have been like a 5 minute opening was going to end up being like 15. So I'm like, you know what? This is almost worth doing an episode by itself. Then last night's Raw. And to be completely honest with you, I probably should wait till tonight. I should probably wait till tonight because of that battle royal on NXT that's going to determine the number one contender to Trick Williams NXT championship. I should wait, but I'm not gonna. I will say because this is going to be recorded. This is recorded on Tuesday Tuesday morning at about 11:30, and the episode will air tonight, USA 8 o'clock. And I already know who I feel is going to win this battle royal, and I believe I know who's going to win this battle royal. So I'm going to say it here in this video because this will go out immediately. Um, I Joe Hendry. I left clues. Joe Hendry. I feel like it's going to be Joe Hendry versus Trick Williams for the NXT Championship. I'm loving this matchup, and that is one of the 8 matches that I have for that WWE TNA mashup card that I want to write. That's what this is. Yes, the paper is backwards because I don't want to give it away. It's the whole point of the episode. But that's coming. But this other event is last night's Raw. How it started, how it ended. That's a damn good booking, you ask me. Let's talk about that first. Seth Rollins opens the show. The visionary, the revolutionary returns to wrestling. A lot sooner than I thought he would. And I love how Damian Priest started to feel like champion. And I need more of that, but I'm having issue with Priest. My issue with Priest is quite simple. I don't feel like he's had a definitive moment in his championship title reign yet. I think he's a fine champion. I've been clamoring for him to be champion. Just doesn't feel good yet. Doesn't feel good yet. Winning because of the Punk interference at Clash of the Castle, while it makes perfect sense for story, for Drew, and it makes perfect sense for story with Punk. Uh, it doesn't make a lot of sense for Priest. I don't like it. I feel like his championship is going to start looking like a footnote, and I don't like it. Mind you, keep in mind, he's only the third champion with this rendition of the belt. He needs some clean cut, clear wins and defenses. Without Judgment Day, without somebody else's interference, Drew losing is fine with me. I'll get into that in a bit. It's how Priest is winning. I have a problem with it. Cody's not wrestling enough. I need Cody to wrestle more. And I think with this blood, now that he's getting into the bloodline stuff, I think we're gonna get it just fine. I'm needing more from my champions. I need more from my champions. That's me. There are some other things. There's like 3 whole events that took place in almost the span of about a week or so. There was Battleground, NXT Battleground. There was TNA's Against All Odds, and then there's Clash of the Castle. And I haven't had a chance to really discuss most of any of it. So, of course, I think I mentioned some of this. Kalani Jordan becomes the first ever NXT North American women's champion. That's important. I think I understand why Kalani Jordan. If you're going to be the first champion, you need something to establish yourself in, not just the role as champion, but you as the wrestler who is holding said champion. And I think the person who could benefit from the push that the title should give her is going to be Kalani Jordan. My pick was Jada Parker, and I still feel like Jada Parker is going to hit this belt soon. But I want to kind of remind you of Chris Jericho in the AEW Championship. The original match of Hangman versus Jericho was the correct match. Was the correct match. Jericho winning was the right move. Wasn't how I would have picked it, but it was the right move. It allowed for Jericho, the well-established wrestler from around the world, the legend, to establish credibility with the title. Plain and simple. So that when Hangman eventually held it, it mattered. So you're gonna see future champion in Lash Legend. You're gonna see a future champion in Jada Parker. You're gonna see a future champion, I would say, in Fallon Henley. She'll make a great heel champion. Um, but I feel like Jada Parker is gonna go into that Carmelo Hayes kind of vibe, where she gets the North American Championship. She'll revel. Kalani Jordan will set a good foundation. Parker will then take it to another level. She will then relinquish or drop it, and then she will kill it with the NXT Women's Championship. I'm a fan of Miss Parker. Um, my other issues that will be present with this video have a lot more to do with the fandom than the actual product. Let's get into it. Both of these points happened at WWE events. And the fandom seems to really not. I feel like there is a section of the IWC, the Internet Wrestling Community, that doesn't get it. And I feel like this might be gatekeeping. And I hope I'm not. I don't feel like I am because we're all fans. But I like to believe that some fans are more competent to what they're actually watching versus what they think they're watching. For example, Jordan Grace versus Roxanne Perez at NXT Battleground for the NXT Women's Championship, not the TNA Knockouts Championship. That's important. The the result was going to be Roxanne Perez. I was hopeful that we would get more Jordan Grace on NXT television because I'm a huge fan of Jordan Grace. I don't like to bet against Jordan Grace. However, if she's being paid for 3 appearances and she showed up, did a match, and has a match at the pay per view, you got 3 appearances. Again, it wasn't going to be Jordan Grace. If you are if you already have a championship and you don't need the other one, but the match allows for the prohibited portal to be open, then yeah. And right now, I don't care about Moose being world champion over there at TNA. Jordan Grace, quite obviously, the face of this company, as she rightfully should be. With that, while there's a lot of story that can be told about Roxanne Perez losing the NXT Women's Championship to TNA, I don't think that's ultimately the story that they want to tell in this partnership. I was reading some comments pertaining to this match, and there's an overwhelming group of people who felt like Jordan Grace was getting buried by NXT by Perez, and that WWE was trying to bury TNA. My issue is I don't feel like a lot of fans who use these terms understand what they mean. You're going to bury a wrestler. You're going to make them lose or perform in such a manner that they are viewed almost as if they are an embarrassment to the industry, let alone the company. And that is where I have issue. This match was one of the best Roxanne Perez matches I've ever seen. And I'm a moderate Perez fan. You know, I'm not jumping to watch every card that she's on, but if there's a good matchup, I am confident that Roxanne Perez will perform. And today, on that day in this match, she performed incredibly well. She held her own and it was viable. That's the kicker. Yes, everything is choreographed in the ring. Let's not kid ourselves. But it has to be believable. That's the trip. It has to be believable. I believed everything in that match. All the offense from Grace, all the offense from Perez. I believed all of it. Perez made it viable, considering that Jordan Grace was clearly the more established wrestler. She was the more established champion, and she was clearly and utterly at a strength disadvantage. Perez was. But Perez was able to utilize skill and tenacity and speed to overcome Grace in a way that was viable. It was believable, leading Grace to lose and look strong in defeat. And I don't think this is a concept that people are starting to are understanding anymore. In a match, we expect someone to win and someone to lose, which is why DQ finishes get so frustrating. No one really wins. No one really loses. There's someone declared a winner, and yeah, you can run with that, but no one's actually winning. Damian Priest, for example, losing or winning the match against Drew McIntyre because there was a referee bump and CM Punk came and interfered, and McIntyre got distracted. Priest won, probably unaware of the interference from Punk. That's fine, but not good. Like I can accept that. I can see Priest winning. I can accept that. What I can't accept is that Priest doesn't seem to be able to win clean. I don't like that narrative. I get it. He's with that heel faction. And I think he's technically heel, like a popular heel. But I need him to win definitively. And it has nothing to do with the fact that the ending is predetermined or the story is going one way versus another. I just want my champions to look credible. Jordan Grace still looked like a credible champion. Roxanne Perez looked the best that she's ever looked, my opinion. So when I hear all these people saying WWE doesn't care about TNA, they're just trying to bury TNA, they're just trying to make TNA look weak, and they make Jordan Grace look like whatever. I need you to find a row of chairs and take several seats because you clearly don't understand what you're watching. Jordan Grace looked amazing in defeat. She showed up, demonstrated her skill set, and went toe to toe with who was our top women's champion in NXT. And that's what our champion's supposed to do on her home turf. Transversely, when Jordan Grace was fighting Tatum Paxley at Against All Odds, it's the same thing. The visitors should make a good showing, but the champion should look strong at home. Even in the situation where the title eventually gets lost and someone from one company loses it to the other, even then they've got to look credible. Otherwise, they suck as champion. And my response to these people in these comments was, do you honestly believe that TNA didn't have any say so in how that match was going to be booked? Do you think that WWE, TNA more specific, or NXT more specifically, just said, you know what, we don't care what's going to happen with TNA, just make her lose? Of course not. The executives and Jordan Grace's husband was right there at ring. They were there. You don't think they knew how that match was going to play out? You don't think they knew how it was going to end? You don't think they understood or were involved in how the match would get called? Of course they did. No one was buried. WWE is not trying to bury a partnership with TNA, and no one's trying to bury Jordan Grace. Jordan Grace is the face of that company. TNA wouldn't have allowed it. Now, if they pulled a fast one, a la the Montreal Screwjob, then sure, yeah, we would have some issues. That would probably also kill the partnership. This is how this works. Someone wins, someone loses. And no one wants to see their favorite lose and especially get screwed out or have there be like an interference or anything like that. Nobody wants it. There are still people who are really angry about how Drew McIntyre lost. They are mad, scathing. They are refusing to watch WWE in protest of how Drew McIntyre lost. And again, I say, before the match aired, before they got out there, they knew the finish. This is perfect for the Drew CM Punk story to continue, specifically with the injuries to Punk. The injury to Punk would have otherwise stifled a hot rivalry. And you don't want to stifle a hot rivalry. So it's the equivalent of doing promos and pushing this narrative forward using promos, using interference spots. This is now what drives Drew McIntyre, that anger, that frustration that drives Drew McIntyre. He's had this opportunity. He won the title at WrestleMania. Distracted by Punk, lost the title. He had a chance for being number one contender when it came into that battle royal. Who screwed him out of the title opportunity? CM Punk. He has a title match at Clash at the Castle, and who screws him over? CM Punk. It's the story, because Drew can't do anything to Punk yet because Punk is still injured. As of this recording, CM Punk is supposed to be on SmackDown because SmackDown is in Chicago, and of course he is. And rumor is that he's going to be cleared for competition this week. And if you think that screwing Drew McIntyre out of the title at Clash at the Castle, having Drew McIntyre seemingly quit Monday, WWE on Monday Night Raw, and then immediately after that, the same week, CM Punk is likely going to say, "Oh, well, I'm healthy now. I can wrestle. Where's Drew?" If you think that shit isn't planned, I don't know what show you're watching. I do not. I don't know how long you've been watching wrestling. This is exactly how we build this story. Because then something happens, someone renegotiates, Drew comes back, and he's attacking Punk. It's story, man. Professional wrestling is the greatest form of theater, and it doesn't get more theatric than this. This is what it is. Because this is what it's supposed to be. Yes, Jordan Grace was supposed to lose. Yes, Drew McIntyre was going to lose in his hometown or his home country. Piper Niven lost in her home country, and no one's crying about that. Piper is just as much Scottish as Drew McIntyre. She got her title match against Bayley, just as Drew McIntyre got his title match against Priest. Now, did Piper get screwed? No, she just lost. And I think a lot of people are actually mad at how the match ended versus the fact that Drew didn't win. And I get it. Who likes a screwy finish? I don't. I'm also sitting here complaining about how Priest isn't winning clean. But there comes a point in time where we get frustrated and we get annoyed by how the stories are going. Trust, we've all been there. Half the bloodline storyline fit that bill. Gotta let the story cook. Gotta let the story cook. Sometimes the resolution to a thing doesn't get explained or clarified until the next part. Interesting way of connecting it was think about Back to the Future Part 2. Marty's with Jennifer. Doc Brown returns and says, "Hey, I need you to come with me. There's an issue with your kids. You got to help me fix it. Jennifer's here. He's like, fine, bring Jennifer in and out. We'll be right back. So they go. When they go to the future, she's asking too many questions. So Doc Brown puts her to sleep, and she ends up being taken to Jennifer's future home because her fingerprints don't change. So when the police identify her, they send her home. They go and they get Jennifer, and Jennifer's asleep. Well, she's knocked out, so she's asleep. So they take her home and they lay her on her porch. And they're like, we'll be right back. It's cool. She'll wake up in the morning and think she just fell asleep. They ended up changing something in the past, Biff did, which led to everything changing. And Jennifer is just on the porch. If you follow this and you're thinking about the Jennifer portion of the story, while it's not significant, she's just hanging out on her porch while all this stuff is going down. And it never gets resolved in part 2. It's only at the end of part 3 does Marty go back to Jennifer's, who's still laying on her porch, and he's like, hey, and that part is resolved, and we've reconnected to that part of the story. I say all that to, one, spoil Back to the Future for somebody who's watching the show who's never seen it. The movie's been out for like 30 years. It's on TV all the time. You have no excuse. And it's to show that sometimes the story being told is not going to get resolved now. You just got to kind of let this story kind of hang out and cook. And then you're going to get served the meal later on. Think of it as a dessert that takes a long time to bake, right? So you start with it, but you're not going to eat it until the very end of the meal. Terrible analogy. We're going to go with it. Another issue. That's enough of that. Another issue I have is the criticism of Jade Cargill, which I feel could almost be a video of its own. I could do my objective opinion of Jade Cargill. There will be an objective opinion of Logan Paul. I could do both. I don't feel like I ultimately need to. Is Jade the cleanest wrestler? No. Is she first ballot Hall of Famer? Not even close. But does she deserve the criticism she got from her match at Clash at the Castle? Clash at the Castle. Why my tongue decides it doesn't want to work while the camera's running, I have no. I'm not taking any of this. This is just you get the realness from the moon. This is what we do. You know what? For my mouth's sake, we're just going to say Clash. We know that it means Clash of the Castle, right then. So we'll just refer to it as Clash. Jade Cargill's criticism for her match at Clash, the level of it is undeserving. Let's get into it. There were 2 moments that stand out to me, and realistically, only one genuinely stood out to me. The first one I didn't even notice. I might have just glanced away while it happened, but it just was a thing that happened. Sometimes a springboard doesn't work. Sometimes it doesn't. There have been reports that came out since then that there was a lot of issues the WWE was having that night with the ropes. A lot of wrestlers had issue with the ropes. Ollie Davis from Wrestle Talk, he pointed out in his news report that almost every match was impacted by the ropes to some degree. So does Jade Cargill deserve criticism for missing a springboard and landing awkwardly? Um, when Damian Priest doesn't get criticized for that? What about every other time someone has slipped on the ropes during a springboard? Dragon Lee, Rey Mysterio, realistically, everybody. Anyone who's done it has probably slipped on those ropes at some point. It doesn't mean that they automatically need to go back and get training. It doesn't actually work as a denigration to them at all. It's just an acknowledgement that that move didn't work. Sometimes the suplex doesn't go. Sometimes someone doesn't catch all the backflip. Think about how many times you hear uh, commentary say the phrase, I don't think they got all of it. They use that phrase in AEW. They use that phrase in TNA. They use that phrase in WWE. What that basically translates into is, oh, they tried a move and it didn't go the way it was supposed to 100%. The person probably still made contact, but didn't make contact the way they were supposed to make contact for the move to be properly executed. That's what happened to Jade Cargill. Now, at a different point in time in the match, she's in the Karafuda clutch, and she's seen that's on the microphone. She's seen doing this, like this, which should have been a tap out. I was explaining this to my wife that how many taps count as a tap out submission. I think the consensus is 4. That is my number. It's 4. If your hand taps 4 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's a tap out. Everything else is up to interpretation. I think 1 is just your hand hitting the ground. 2 is frustration. 3 is iffy, but 4 is a definite tap out. I counted those taps. It was 4. Jade Cargill tapped out. It was referred to by Shayna Baszler last night as they were challenging or standing to challenge the Unholy Union. Looking at these two things separately, Jade Cargill slipping on the ropes during a springboard is not my concern. Can she do the move? Does she need to reset? Probably. Does that mean reset her training? No, just reset in the moment of the match. So if you have a spot coming up, execute your spot, do your thing, tag out, and just be like, yo, give me 3. And then just 3 seconds, 30 seconds, 3 minutes, whatever it is, give Jade a chance to just tag back in, continue the movement. I don't think there's a problem with a rest hold at that point. You're like, girl, just let me reset. And then you reset. And you reset yourself. Then you get back into the match. That doesn't mean she needs more training. That doesn't mean she needs to go to NXT or get out of the industry. So the people who are criticizing Jade Cargill, but not every other wrestler who's made the exact same mistake, or the other wrestlers who made mistakes on that same card, that exact same night, Damian Priest slipped on the ropes. If you're not sending Damian Priest back to NXT, shut up about sending Jade Cargill back to NXT. I know that there's been criticism on Jade Cargill for a while now, and I don't think anyone's giving her a fair shake. It boils down to this. As a wrestling fan, as a wrestling podcaster, there's a lot of things I can't do. All of it, as a matter of fact. So while I can say Jade Cargill tapping out is a problem, Gunther not properly pinning Randy Orton is a problem. For it to happen in 2 events back to back like that, that's a problem. And I think that's a problem that can be easily fixed by the creative team. They need to just establish a protocol. Like, hey, when the refs see something that ain't right, they need to do something about it. Luckily, Jessica Carr was not in proper position to see the tap out, and that was because they were supposed to be the unholy union winning the titles. And if Jessica Carr saw the tap out and did nothing, that kills everything. This is theater, and I say it several times. This is performance theater. Anything that involves you being on a stage is akin to this. Instead of Shakespeare's Globe, it's the WWE ring. That's the stage. If you are going to perform on stage to tell your story through physical action, you need to be very aware of what the presentation of your actions are and how they ultimately impact. In the case of Gunther Orton, the referee was right there, should have just said, hey, fix the pin. Hey, his shoulders aren't down. I can't count until his shoulders are down. Maybe you reset and do the spot over again. Maybe you just shift and move them to where the shoulders are down. Randy could have heard the call and moved his shoulders to be flat. Then the referee calls. But I think about the win for the Unholy Union was supposed to be like a big thing in Scotland. Hometown, they had their family waiting for them with flowers, and Kaylee Ray had Alba Fire had some tragedies in her family, and I worry of what would have happened if Jessica Carr was in a situation where she was right there looking at the hand to tap out. Jay taps, and Jessica Carr, as the referee, is forced to call for the bell and award the championships to Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark, ending the match, ruining the ending, and ruining this big hometown pop the Unholy Union was supposed to. The credibility of Gunther's King of the Ring victory is already still under question. I think that match ended the way it was supposed to, but issue there. We've got to start. We got to clean these things up because it's ruining the theater. Wrestling fans already have to enter the world of kayfabe, and it's difficult to stay in kayfabe when you make blatant mistakes like this. Now, does that mean that Jade needs to go back to training? No, just needs to fix the spot. Because again, if you're not going to put Gunther or Randy Orton back into training, you're not going to put Jade back into training for the same thing. I don't know what the solution is. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what we would have done if Jessica was right there to watch it. I don't know. But I hope that these aren't things we're going to have to worry about for much longer. I hope that things are fixed soon and we move on. real quick, I got a couple more points to go, and I'll cut this video. About Drew losing. And I feel like I touched on it a lot already, but let's just real quick about Drew losing. It was the right call for the story. Here's why. This is where I would do like a Simon Miller thing, but there are three options for Clash when it comes to Drew McIntyre. He wins, loses, or he's not there at all. He could have just showed up, did the hometown pop, and done whatever. He could have played special guest referee, but not there in a match at all, involved in any kind of way. That just wasn't going to happen. He's the most popular wrestler from Scotland right now. He's going to be on the card, going to be on the main event. That's how that works. And nobody wants Drew as referee. I want him as a contender. I know he got screwed over by Solo, and he got screwed by CM Punk. So it just seems like we're just going to keep screwing him over in his hometown or his home country. The other one was in Wales. That's not his home country. Over in Europe, in the United Kingdom. And it's just how the story is being told. The story we like? No. Do we have the right to not like it? Of course we do. I'm willing to ride this out. Because Drew McIntyre is at a point he doesn't need to win in those moments. Damian Priest absolutely did not need to lose. That's the problem. If Drew won, that means Priest lost. And you completely footnote his entire championship title reign. Terrible. Can't do that. If he loses, everyone's mad. But how he lost allows his story, his actual storyline, to progress forward. The only other option is to not have Drew there at all. And that's just going to cause everyone to riot anyway. So, of those options, the best one was to have Drew lose. Just is. That's all it takes. Now, what's left? The return of the Wyatts. After months of glitchy QR codes and weird websites and such, the Wyatt Six. It's either a six or it's the word sick with the plural six. Um, the Wyatt, the new Wyatt family, the new Wyatt faction, Uncle Halliday and them. They debuted at the end of Raw last night. I knew that at the end of Raw last night, if they were going to show up and debut, there was no way I could wait till Thursday to put them. That's why we have this video. And I figured I have all this other stuff to talk about and throw out there. So we're just going to do a whole separate video prior to the mashup card. And that's what this is. This is this video. All the stuff that's happened that I otherwise would have talked about since the last time I recorded. And the debut, crazy, man. The debut of the Wyatts. I think I'll find the link and I'll put it in the description. So that's cool. So while you're looking for the description or the link in the description, go ahead and hit like and subscribe because I'm cool and you love me. But it was nuts. It wasn't all of Bray's Shatter theme. It was just that that first piano note. And they just played that over and over again for about 3 to 5 minutes while Nikki Cross comes out, crawls to a lantern. Camera does a long shot, does a continuous shot where they go into the back production and they see where the Wyatts murdered everyone. You'll see it when you watch it because I can't obviously play it here, but you'll see it. It's just like Chad Gable looks like he got shot in the face. Everyone else looks like they got beat up or killed. Like it looks like they just murdered a third of the roster and took out all the production team. It was crazy. Um, Nonetheless, uh, they're here. And so now the question is, what next? Bray's not here for his vision, but I'm sure that, you know, Bo Dallas is very much aware of what the plan was supposed to be. I think they've had some questions and some comments, and they've done some uh, soul searching. And I'm sure that there's a plan in place. Don't know what that plan is. I don't know if they're here to just create chaos or how they're going to do uh, tag team stuff. Honestly, there's enough members to hold all the gold in the Wyatt family. And I think it's about time for a faction to do that. You can put the world title on Howdy. Not sure how I feel about that, but we're going to go with it. Women's title on Nikki. Um, Joe Gacy and Dexter Loomis tag titles. And then Eric Rowan, IC title. Put every belt on Raw on the Wyatt and make them a very powerful faction that allows them to literally hold the whole world of Raw in their hands or around their waist or over their shoulders or wherever the belt actually is. I am intrigued by this. I am also apprehensive of whether or not there's going to be comfort in doing this faction without Bray in a way that makes sense both for Bray and his legacy and for the week to week story of Monday Night Raw. And that's it, really. That's all I got. Uh, Again, the gist of this video was to get out all my thoughts and feelings that would otherwise be the opening to the mashup card video, but I was afraid that that was going to go too long. And once the Wyatts debuted last night, I knew I needed to address it immediately. And while I was at it, throw in all the other stuff I wanted to talk about. So I appreciate you for watching this video. I ask you to do the things to support me, this channel, and this show. That's the like stuff and the subscribe stuff. Visit DewanLHearn.com/shop and you can get yourself an Everything Comes Back to Wrestling t-shirt. For all the wrestling fans who find a way to weave wrestling into all of our conversations, since everything comes back to wrestling, feel free to pick up a shirt. And until Thursday, really. Um, Moon out.